it will be 61.3.
Yeah.
We have it in the presentation.
Okay.
Then in 2028, it will be 60.3.
It says in 2028, below 60, sana. But
Yeah.
I really do not see how this will happen, considering that at present date, our debt clearly outpaces our growth. And even for next
More or
year,
less, it's
for-
more or less
Yeah.
flat. Again, let me begin.
Yeah.
When BBM administration took office, the debt to GDP was 62.1. If we are at 61.3, then there is an improvement. It is not worse off. So we intend to leave the administration better off than when we arrived.
Yes.
Now, the deficit should have been more steeper, the decline, but considering all the global challenges that the Philippines is faced with, we thought it best to have a more gradual reduction in our deficit. What is important is that we have a deficit path that is going down. Can you show me the deficit path? During the pandemic, the deficit was the economy dropped by 9.5%, the biggest since World War II, and then our deficit was 8.6%. That went down to 7.3 in 2022. That's still higher than the growth of the economy. 6.2% in 2023, 5.7% last year. That will go down to 5.5% this year, 5.3% next year, in 27, 4.8, 4.3 in 2028. So you will see that the deficit path is going down. And then the revenues are increasing double digit. Then we expect the expenditures to start going down. Like if you take a look at this slide in 2028, from today's 21.5%, it will go down to 20.2 or 20.6 in 2028. So that's your debt.
I wish I could be as
Yes.
optimistic as our good secretary. I am certain if you were sitting here a few years ago, you would ask the same questions of the DOF secretary then. But I understand your task, the difficult job of trying to explain at least how we can make it look better. And I hope this will not be the same issues or challenges we will be facing in a year's time when we have the DBCC again. I just wanted to put
Yes.
that on record because it was very clearly stated that we, as long as we do not outpace our debt stock.
That's
but
correct.
it's not the situation now. Hopefully, with what you're saying, it would improve in a year's time. Which brings me to my, perhaps Dep Dev, Sec Balisacan can also comment on this, unless the position of NEDA, of course, of Dep Dev is the same. Because I was just worried that our pace of growth is not, hindi po sumasabay sa ating pag-utang.
We are looking at the, Mr. Chair, I feel, we are looking at the medium term, and that's what Sec Ralph was emphasizing. We're looking at the 2022 to 2028, and if you look at that, we would see a declining trend, but obviously, there would be, I think, this year we could have slightly higher than what we wanted, but I think what's more important is that the medium term is that we end up at the end of this administration at a lower level than before. Yeah.
Yes, our dear secretaries, just take note and just to put on record, the GDP growth was adjusted lower, no? In 2026, it would have been 6.5 to 8. It was lowered to 6 to 7. And this year, 6.5 to 8, it was lowered to 5.5 to 6.5. So, I don't think it's improving because there were revised targets in the BESF as compared to the MTFF. That is the reason why our two secretaries and DBM was here yesterday, where I insisted and hoped that the MTFF could have been submitted to the 20th Congress before the budget deliberations so that we could actually study it further to support us here. But it's not yet available. Our according to Secretary Pangandaman, and we will await that before the formal budget hearings on plenary. Which brings me to my other question, since we are speaking about debt, and we look at the 2026 disbursements. It says here that for 2026, the disbursements of 5.02 trillion will be for current operating expenses, that it is higher than the revenue projection of 4.98 trillion. So in short, based on your own figures, that's 37.3 billion. So, in my understanding, again, layman's understanding, does it mean that we are borrowing for our COE? Yeah, umuutang tayo para sa ating current operating expenses, right? Because there's a shortfall, right?
This year, more or less, we're borrowing all our capital outlay. Maging tulay, maging kalsada, flood control, inuutang natin lahat yan. Airport, seaport, so on and so forth. Classroom, hospital. Next year, in 2026, iuutangin natin hindi lang sa capital outlay. A portion already of our current operating expenses. Uutangin din natin yan. Yes.
May we be enlightened from the total borrowings, both domestic and foreign, what percentage, or if you have the numbers, are allocated for capital outlay, as you say, for project development or for new priorities of government, and which are for current operating expenses? Are we actually borrowing more and allocating more for our COE? How much of it is for
it's not so much. It's not so much in contracts with ODA and program loans or project loans, but more or less, whatever revenue you collect this year or next year, roughly 5 trillion pesos, that is just enough or not totally enough for salaries, for maintenance operating expenses, for interest expense on the debt, for the national tax allotment of all LGUs nationwide. A portion of that. And then all your capital outlay, in effect, you are borrowing. Our capital outlay next year is roughly something like 1.4 trillion. But then your deficit is 1.6. Ergo, you're borrowing 200 billion for maintenance operating expenses.
That was my
That is the reality, yes.
So, that's the
For next
reality.
year. For next year.
Yes.
And
So,
that's why when we come to Congress, we tell Congress, do not pass as much as possible. Do not pass laws that increase our current operating expenses. Number one. Number two, do not pass laws that reduce our revenues. Because this is the effect.
okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, with the permission of Senator Lauren Legarda. That's a good point, Mr. Chairman. And you would suggest, and the DBM, you're all here together, our finance team, that laws, for example, creation of new offices, creation of new engineering districts, creation of new, I guess,
Mr. President, we just came from an election. And in that election, if I recall, mula konsehal hanggang senador, lahat pinangako libre. At lahat pinangako ibababa ang buwis. So if I count all the 14,000 bills filed in Congress, in the previous Congress, siguro ang dagdag na gastos 4 trillion at yung collection natin zero na. If you look at all the bills,
no, that's why, to be guided, kasi like in my Committee on Economic Affairs, alam po ni Secretary Bali sa akin yan, ang daming pupunta dito na taga-house, and they're asking for economic zones in all their provinces. At least we can be guided and say that there's a threat of veto. Would it be safe to say that it could be vetoed? It would be more likely to be vetoed when you come up with those
yes, we
offices.
remind the President of our fiscal condition, and we tell the President, and he's agreed, he's also conservative, that as much as possible, we do not pass revenue eroding measures. Number one. Number two, if you want new spending, do a pay-as-you-go. Adopt a revenue revenue resource measure so that we can pay for that activity.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Loud and clear po. Loud and clear.
Thank you. Salamat.
We take note of that. May I know for how many years have we been borrowing to cover for our current operating expenses? It's not just in how many administrations. I'm trying to look back.
In the past, that was a
Yes.
practice. Recently, under when
Was there a year when we borrowed only for projects,
Yes, last
but
year.
not for operating expenses?
year and
May,
this year,
Yeah.
yes.
May we know it's all based on revenues collected, right? What was the reason? So, on years where we
No,
did
let
not
me
use
give
borrowing,
you an example. Every year we have borrowings. Every year there is a deficit. Okay? I think the question is, your question is, Madam, Mr. Chair.
not to use it for current operating, but
Yes,
for project
correct,
development.
correct.
Oh.
So last year and the year before that, our deficit was only for capital outlay. Okay? The main reason why we're now borrowing for current operating expenses is because we have SSL 5, 6, number 1, and then we're hiring more teachers because we need to hire more teachers. So these are some of the reasons why our current operating expenses is going up.
Thank you for that. Now, I would like to go back to my question yesterday when the secretaries of Finance and DepDev were not here. On the benchmark we are using for our poverty threshold, I will not read my long question again, but perhaps we could have an answer from the two departments on the expected impact on the official poverty incidence if the poverty threshold is updated to reflect more realistic costs of living. Because I mentioned yesterday that, and the answer was, we are still using the 2024, which was already questioned, on 33,296 person per year, or 2,775 per month. I don't think this was sufficiently answered. So my point is, if we are using that as a benchmark, then everything else that we're budgeting for may not be as accurate as we wish it to be. If we are still doing a study on what really is the poverty threshold being used. The answer I got was, we're using the 2024 because there are still studies being conducted. So how will our budgeting be, or projections for 2026, if we're still using the harshly criticized 2024 poverty threshold benchmark? So, in short, pag hindi pala ganun ang kailangan ng mahirap para mabuhay, or pag hindi naman, was it 21 pesos per meal, which was unrealistic, and the study would come out that it's actually double of a 21, if the basis is higher, so the poverty incidence will grow, will increase as expected. How would this affect the government's overall assessment of development? That was the question which was hanging yesterday. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. As I was saying earlier, Mr. Chair, that the one primary purpose of the poverty threshold is to help us examine whether we are making progress in reducing poverty. So it's not just the absolute level at any particular point in time that we are so much concerned, but it is the changes over time, because that will tell us whether the programs, the projects, the strategies that we are using to fight poverty is working or not. And so what we have done is to adjust the poverty threshold that we have been using in the past, and it will be higher because it will reflect changes in family composition and even in the standard of living that has happened over the last 10 years since that poverty line was set. To set 10 years. It was adjusted annually for inflation, but the standard of living that it